This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
Yeah, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
This is your a bit of nostalgia for the good old days. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Tweet that.
KFAN.com. 1 minute and 51 seconds past the hour of 3 Central Daylight Saving Time. Bumper to Bumper show is live, local. It's on the air, and it begins right now on a beautiful Monday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro, former Ink-Stain Wretch, newspaper of the Twin Cities. Delighted to be back with you to start the week. Guardsy, well, we'll give you more details on him in a minute, but Brett Blakemore is back in that chair for the second, well, actually probably for you, third consecutive day, because aren't you in on Saturdays too? Oh, no, Beyond the Pond's done, right?
No, but I'm still in.
Are you still have to be in that chair?
Well, okay. Fan outdoors.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
In the zone. Oh, yeah.
And what's the name of the Common Golf show?
Tee to Green.
Tee to Green, is that still on?
It is.
And you got to be here for that, too.
I do.
Do you participate, or do you just let him go?
Sometimes.
So every once in a while, you'll throw something in?
Well, it helps knowing some golf people.
Well, yeah, that's probably true. We'll be going the distance today until 6:30 this very evening. 6:30 tonight. More details on our guest lineup tonight as well. The Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is known to most of you. That number is 64686, and some folks have already weighed in on a number of very controversial and eclectic subjects as well. Am I the only one nostalgic for the good old days? And technically they were the bad old days, but there's a part of me that is a bit wistful on this particular NBA day. This, of course, is Draft Lottery Monday. And this has been, over the years, as most of you know, a Minnesota Timberwolves staple. Nothing to necessarily be proud of, but I can't even imagine how many lottery-related shows we did or have done over the years. And as we, I think deep down, appreciate that we do not reside in those pond scum-filled waters any longer, that maybe there's a little nostalgia for some of that stuff. That sense that maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe one of these years we will get the number one pick. Now, as it turns out, we did a couple times in recent years, and you could say to a certain extent that we wouldn't even be in the position we're in the playoffs if we had not been as, quote-unquote, lucky on those occasions. How many Wolves fans out there? I know you're loving the team's current position. Second consecutive year now with a legitimate chance to reach the conference finals. They're up 2-1 going into tonight's pivotal Game 4. They call every game pivotal these days. But do you miss it a little bit? All of the anticipation of, can we get lucky? Can we stop being as unlucky as we tended to be? I have counted up unofficially, your Minnesota Timberwolves have participated in 23 lotteries. 23 times they have made the National Basketball Association lottery, which in theory is the opportunity for wretched teams to draft highly enough to get a player who might turn their fortunes around. Now, over the years, part of the angst regarding the lottery is that even after we went to the lottery system, which was to discourage tanking, all it has really done is encourage more tanking, because more teams say, well, we got a shot at this. Why? We're not going anywhere, so why would we not attempt to tank? Do you miss any of it? Because I kind of do. I really do. Oddly speaking, there was almost a comfort in it that was our thing. Minnesota Timberwolves, lottery. And as some of you in the audience will know, well, if you add up the number of lotteries we've been in, as I said, 23, and also then add up the position based on record we were supposed to finish in the lottery, and the position each year we actually landed in the lottery. In other words, if you are supposed to pick first based on record and you end up picking fourth, that's a -3, right? You've dropped 3 spaces. So if you put all the Wolves' ups and downs together, moving up, moving down together, they are a combined -15. That's how unlucky this team has tended to be. Now, more recently, of course, it got better because the last time we won the lottery, one of only 2 times we won it, we were supposed to finish third. So we, in that occasion, moved up 2 spots. And that, of course, was the Anthony Edwards year. It is interesting and then, of course, the Towns year, we were supposed to finish first, and we did. And even then, we celebrated because the assumption based on previous history was we're going to move down. That's all we do. We're going to move down. And on that occasion, we got exactly what we deserved, coming off a record of 16-66 to get it done. Now, back then, they've tried to change the way they've done it. In 2015, with the worst record, you had a 25% chance to finish first. When we finished first the Ant year, we had a 14% chance. Because I think they've lowered the chance even if you're number one. In other words, a greater opportunity for, sadly, more teams to tank and to come up from out of nowhere in order to, as we say, make your move, shall we say. And as I mentioned, it sounds perverse, really, in a way. It's like, why would you miss what really constitutes as being reminded of the franchise's utter ineptitude? But that history is so fascinating. So as I said, 2020, we got +2. 2 spots better than we were supposed to. 2019, we were -1. 2000, and we ended up with Cam Johnson. -1 2017, then a bunch of zeros where we finished basically exactly where we were supposed to. And then a -1, a -2, a -1, a -1, a -1, a -2, a -1, a -3, a -2, and a -1. We were, for a long stretch, we were in the minuses all the way. The only time that we have ever moved up was the Edwards year. Every other time, we've either landed where we were supposed to or we have been in the minuses. And, of course, the most infamous occasion is the year we were supposed to get, by right, Shaquille O'Neal, and we didn't get him. We dropped from 1 to 3. So that means we didn't get Shaq, and that means we had no chance to draft Alonzo Mourning, who went number 2. And, of course, we had to settle for Christian Laettner, who, as I've said before on this show, I raved about in the column I wrote after that lottery. I said, don't regret, don't lament. Obviously, Shaq is the grand prize, but you're going to be surprised by how good Christian Laettner is going to be. I thought he was going to be a perennial all-star. He did become an all-star, but I don't think it was until he left here, and he obviously was nowhere near the pro player that he was as a college player. So I blew that one. But we have, it's almost like in our DNA. And there's a part of me that wants to use this, too, as a lesson to Wolves fans who, as we talked about a little bit on sermons, I think there was this sort of undercurrent of that last victory. Yeah, we won, but man, I don't know. It just, they don't have Steph Curry, and it seemed like it was too difficult and too complicated and too hard. And are we really accomplishing anything? And I think I told you Sunday, take the victory. Take the victory against a team that even without Curry is much better defensively than I realized. And except also celebrate the fact that in winning time, a team that has not been particularly good about finishing off games the right way, they took that game away from Golden State. They snatched it. That was Golden State's game until it wasn't. And how did it change? It changed because Edwards came to life. It changed because Julius Randle became the best point forward since Larry Bird. And it changed because even Rudy had a couple of big plays, not to mention a few big free throws as well. So we got to remember where we have been historically, which is this. This has been a red letter day for this organization for most of its existence. And when that's the case, you know you have failed as a franchise. Contrast that with the current condition of the club. A real good chance to return to the Final Four, NBA Final Four, for the second consecutive year. Yeah, they got a huge break on Steph. There's no question about that. But they can't apologize for that. They wouldn't be the first team to profit by an injury that significant. And what you just have to go out and do is obviously finish the job. Grant in your hand time, or do we call it bonus bucks, correct?
We call it bonus bucks now. The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com, enter the keyword happy, KFAN.com, keyword.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
The word on the street then was he's too country for pop. But then once I got to country, it was he's too pop for country. So I kind of never really had a place to fit in, but that's exactly how and why I fit. I just embraced that. Like, yeah, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy Deck. Carboni's Pizza wants to fuel your playoff party. Visit one of their 30-plus locations to enjoy delicious pizza and get ready for a playoff run. Find your nearest Carboni's today at carbonispizza.com.
I think we've established in previous walks down lottery lane that the Wolves have literally, if you use that mathematical formula about where you're supposed to pick and where you end up picking, that the Wolves have literally been the unluckiest team in the history of the National Basketball Association lottery. The good news, as I said, is most recently they've gotten 2 number ones, and both helped them. Obviously, Karl Anthony Towns was the first of the 2, and more recently, a guy named Anthony Edwards. So that part has worked out very well. I want to remind you that Johnny Athletic will check in from San Francisco. He said he's going to be on the Golden Gate Bridge when he chats with us at 4:02 today, our time. Maybe he'll run into Guardsy. Guardsy has been bitten again by the Wolves bug. He is the real Timberwolves superfan. So I had even hoped to maybe have him file a report, but I think he's flying. He's swooping in late. So I'm not even sure there'll be that opportunity. But that's why Brett Blakemore is back in that chair. Guardsy will be able to file, I presume, a live report tomorrow upon his return, unless he just decides to stay out there. I have no idea. Maybe he stays out there. If the series ends up going 6, then he'll be in position to be there for that game too. I actually don't know. He is our only scheduled guest for today. John Athletic is scheduled for 4:02 p.m. Interesting. These are back-to-back texts. I don't care, writes Sol and Blaine, how ugly we win. Just win. Players get hurt all the time. We don't really remember. Just won it all. Heck, the 2003 Wolves may have been a big balls dance from winning a title. That's a Sam Cassell callback. By the way, who's the Indiana Pacers star guard who celebrated his own big shot with, Halliburton, a big balls dance, after which the Dean of Discipline, NBA, indeed fined him. I want to say the big balls fine was $75,000, but I'm not sure. Maybe you can look it up, Blakemore. So I guess that's $37,500 per, something like that. Anyway, to his point, instead we basically had to go to war against the Lakers with Guardsy's guy, rapper/basketball player Troy Hudson. Right next to Solon Blaine's message is this. I don't watch a lot, but that was horrible basketball, Dan. I'll say again, I think maybe you need this reminder that we're giving you with this lottery history talk to just clear your head of that nonsense that you have to apologize for a game that was messy to watch. And remember, part of the reason it's messy to watch is the Warriors are trying, they admitted it. They're trying to messy up the game because that's their only chance with Steph Curry out of there. And they are a committed, tenacious defensive club. What happens when you have two good defenses? Because the Wolves' defense is certainly top 5 as well. Basically squaring off. You're likely going to see some ugly offensive basketball through stretches. But that, again, the emphasis on the ugliness ignores way, way too easily the way the Wolves came back when they stopped looking so ugly. When they executed offensively on a number of possessions in a row down the stretch of that game, turning a daunting, not a huge, but a daunting deficit into a pretty, now I would say comfortable victory, but certainly an established victory for sure, with a number of very good plays, led largely by Julius Randle, who we're going to get to a little bit later in more depth. That's what you should remember out of this game. You can't have it both ways. If part of the complaint with the Wolves, rightly, certainly during the season, was our clutch time scores, analytics, performance, even by just watching, not very good, not very dependable, tended to make the wrong play, tended to not make the play you need to make at the right time, whether it's a defensive stand, more importantly, a good offense, good offensive execution. And you suddenly get that kind of finish, which indicates that you are playing better in clutch time. And now you're going to complain that overall, aesthetically, it didn't really look very pretty. Where are we, man? What's happened to us? And have we forgotten that quickly? That's why probably today's a good primer on lottery day. By now, think about this. What is the date today? It's May 12th. Most May 12s, we're not, obviously, if we're in the lottery, we're not playing. We're watching the playoffs. We're watching other teams match up, try to figure it out, the chess match within a series, the adjustments one team makes, and then the other team does, the jousting about officiating, the whining about this player's a cheap shot artist. We have to do all of that from afar. We weren't invested in it because we weren't doing it. We were doing lottery day. Well, what kind of good luck charm are we going to bring with us to New York or Secaucus or Chicago, wherever the draft might have been in a different? That's what we do. Who's going to represent us? And what are they going to bring along to try to change our luck? Is there any greater loser's lament than that? Now we're, like I said, 2 victories away from returning to the Final Four, and it wasn't very pretty. No, it wasn't gorgeous. But it was a gorgeous finish in terms of finding a way to reverse what was going on out there and ultimately making the plays that you need to make to win. They call me negative. It's very interesting. But I think when most fans think it through, they'll be okay. They may still be nervous because, you'd like to think in a perfect world that you're going to dominate Golden State without Steph Curry. I still think that's possible. ultimately, in game 2, the Wolves did dominate. Didn't dominate 3. Now, this is probably tonight. You have to think the Warriors have to view it as their last stand, right? 3-1 means you're done. In most series, certainly in the series where you don't have your best player, probably not likely. Some people don't think he's going to be back at all. Others think the fastest he could be back would be game 6. So you're going to, again, probably get Golden State's best shot. I wonder if they maybe took their best shot the other day, because that was a game, given the factors that went their way, you say, well, you kind of got to win it, you got to finish it, and they didn't, which I think if the Wolves approach this one right, might well mean that tonight's is less dramatic, but it could be, given the desperation with which the Warriors, an extremely well-coached club with still enough championship pedigree, and as I said, I think a pretty good defensive plan, that they might well be capable of making this very interesting again tonight. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open at 64686. Wasn't Leitner the one who called all his teammates losers? Yes. That was the famous scene in the locker room where I was in the building, but I don't know where I was. I wasn't there for the actual loser. I think Common was. Loser. He was pointing, as he was saying loser each time, Leitner was pointing to each of those lockers he associated with losing. And then, of course, his locker, winner. That's how dysfunctional the Wolves were once upon a time. That is indeed for sure. Scary that the Sixers pick could convey to OKC. Talk about the rich getting richer. Yes, that's very, very true, Davey. I think OKC keeps the pick unless they end up in the 7th spot or lower. If it's 6 or higher, they get to, I believe that's the number. They get to keep the pick. And then remember, who was, it was Kanzi, one of the Kanzi years. He got bitter because it's when Cleveland won it, and he made a crack about the owner. Was it the Cavs owner? Had his son there, and I knew with the son we're not gonna have any chance. He got in some hot water there because of some issues regarding the son. If there was ever a way to say the wrong thing, David Kahn clearly mastered that art, and sometimes it would be with us on the radio, sometimes it would be to reporters, and sometimes it would even be on draft night as well. The greater losers lament, writes 763 guy, is longing for the lottery. I'm very much enjoying and embracing their success. I do not miss the lottery one bit. I think part of the reason there's a romance to the lottery for the obvious reason, especially in basketball, where there's this belief, I think, backed up by history, that one player can change everything for a team that's been inept, awful, an afterthought, pathetic, and you feel like all of our troubles can go away on the basis of that one. And often they don't, but that's the way you like to think. And that's, I think, the romance of the lottery is one snap of the finger, everything can change in a in a better direction. Let me get to a couple more texts here real quick. Texter DJ, do the other texters comment on the bad basketball? Just look around the league. A long season, NBA has not done any favors. With a day off travel day this postseason, certainly something they should address. He's speaking, I think, directly to a lot of folks, including Charles Barkley, complaining that the short amount of time, I think basically 36 hours between the last two games in the Okie City-Denver series contributed to what looked to be, well, I think historically was the lowest scoring first half in the history of the NBA playoffs in the most recent game yesterday afternoon. His point is that there's a lot of mucking up that's going on there. And that really is a good transition to where I wanted to go next, related specifically to the Julius Randle angle, which is now getting a lot of attention after he had another triple-double the other night and played extremely well. We are going to talk some more Red Hot Twins. They get it done again They once again get it done. We've got some A-section material to get to. We've got a Minnesota sports calendar of calamity item to address as well. So a very eclectic show. And in about a half hour, John Athletic from San Francisco.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
The word on the street then was he's too country for pop. But then once I got to country, it was he's too pop for country. So I kind of never really had a place to fit in, but that's exactly how and why I fit. I just embraced that. Like, yeah, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Fan.
Get ready to kick off the 2025 season with your 2024 UFA champion Minnesota Wind Chill. Catch the game with our own Justin Guard Saturday, May 17th at Seafoam Stadium, with the first 1,000 fans receiving Wind Chill 2024 UFA Championship t-shirts. Find out how you can win your way in today. KFAN.com, keyword contest. Guardsy better be back in time.
I hope he is. And I know one thing. I'll be wearing my Minnesota Wind Chill hoodie. That's for sure. That's a keeper. It's a beautiful thing. They gave me all kinds of neat stuff when we gave them all the love during, I want to say it was during the Great Minnesota Get Together.
It was.
Was it not? Which is, by the way, right around the corner. I looked it up. It is right. Or think about it.
Yeah.
It's late May. When's the state fair? Late August, right?
Yeah.
Last week in August, usually, isn't that when it starts?
I actually don't hate the fair as much as some.
I don't either.
But what I don't like about the fair is it signals the end of warm weather.
That's the scary part about it. Yeah, there's no question. Here's the way I look at it. When the state fair opens, and I'm taking the big bus from the University of Minnesota lot, from the Sky Yuma lot, and I'm coming up on, well, I guess you could say the sights and the sounds. I'm pumped up. Walk through the not through the grandstand, but through some of the main areas that first day, preparing for the first show. And it feels like, the world is my oyster. And then we get to the end of it, and you go, well, that's it until next year. And in the meantime, we're going to get pummeled again. And winter's going to come. So for me, range of emotions from the upbeat feeling of, oh, this is great. It's a pain in the butt, to get here, but people are generally pretty nice.
Got yelled at crowds. For the media parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then so I'm feeling pretty good about the whole thing. The electricity in the building or all around the buildings, and State Fair location, that extra voltage you feel, the huge crowds. And then you take one last look at the crowd. Generally we're out there that last Sunday. And that's it. It's over. I'm going to work myself into depression just thinking about it. In the fair, and it hasn't even started yet, let alone finished for 2025. A couple texts that will help us sort of introduce the next subject. This is from Willow Mark Rosen's cat, who is complaining about a playoff win. My God, some people just want to be miserable. 612 guy, no, I mean the skill of it, Dan. Horrible turnovers, missing wide open shots. Just brutal to watch. And then there's another 612. I agree with you on all fronts. I really appreciate the reminder of just how far we've come. However, are you the one who tends to hold our teams to a higher standard? I think some of the complaints about the ugliness of the game point to some pretty questionable shooting in general during that game. I love the way we came back for sure, but it did look kind of iffy for a little while there. But that's the point. If they had finished that game as poorly as they well, I don't think they started it necessarily poorly, but played it in the middle, then I get piling on. But they didn't. That's the point. That's ultimately what's going to separate any team from those lamenting what they didn't get done. It's that they got it done. They had a stretch that was not ugly. They had a stretch of remarkably efficient offensive basketball to turn the thing around. And in the end, that's what we got to judge this on, and even me, even if I'm demanding more. Did you make the plays you had to make? That saves it for me. Then I'm not as concerned with the aesthetic if at winning time, as Magic Johnson used to call it. I like that a lot better than clutch time, whatever they're using these days. You make enough of the plays, then that's what you concentrate on. I mean, I'll just give you this stretch. And by the way, Julius Randle was involved in all of it. We're down 5. Randle decides to abuse Draymond Green, drives on him, dunks on him. Then he feeds Edwards, does Julius Randle for a layup. Then he feeds Edwards for a 3. So that's now 7 straight points. You're now ahead. But then let's get it to Jaden for a dunk attempt. The dunk is unsuccessful, but Draymond fouls out on that play. Then he throws a terrific pass to McDaniels for a three-pointer. Remember that we played the highlight of it, that underhand push pass to a trailing Rudy for a dunk. That was off of the Anthony Edwards strip on the other end, and that was a 3-point play. And then, as Johnny Athletic points out in a nice Randle piece today, we'll talk about it in more depth at 4:02, he gets maybe the key rebound of the game. That was the one where Rudy helped. Rudy knocked it away from whoever had a chance to get it for the Warriors. It comes ultimately to Randle. It's his rebound at that point, and he snaps a pass to Edwards in the corner for another 3, and that pretty much wrapped the whole thing up. Those are winning plays. And now it just so happens Randle was involved in all of them, but several other players contributed to them. So in the end, after a season in which the battle has been, how do you finish? How do you close? How do you do in clutch time? Even with a team that doesn't have Steph Curry, the best player, you still have to make the plays. And in a game that was ugly and disorienting, not that different from game 1, they did that. They closed it. That's the saving grace. And if that's what we've been clamoring for and they do it, I'm not sure you can say, well, okay, then it doesn't really matter because Steph's not on the field. Is that a huge advantage? Yes, but it's not unprecedented. And the Randle story, for me, is the perfect storm of time and player. Around the league, more than any other subject, what is being explored through this postseason to this point is, my God, when has the disparity between regular season basketball and postseason basketball been this wide? Every year we assume that refs are going to call it a little looser in the postseason, right? That's supposed to be a given in hockey or basketball. But the gap between what they called in the regular season, where teams routinely were scoring 155 points, and what we're seeing now has never been more dramatic. This is bully ball, that is basically being allowed on almost every possession in most games. And so we're seeing finally the fruits of what Julius Randle in that environment with that kind of whistle add to a basketball team. So the theory behind getting him on the front end was, we talked about it that day, finesse team. Maybe you bring some more power and a little more bully to what the Wolves have to offer, certainly offensively. Now, Randle was never known as a great defensive player, but nevertheless, just more physicality. And DiVincenzo on the wing, similarly, a guy who seemed to have a little bit more of an edge. It didn't seem to translate to the pros or to the regular season, but maybe part of the reason is the way the game's being called. Julius Randle can be a star in a league in which the whistle is as selectively and rarely being blown as we're seeing in this season or this postseason. Now, it might leave a lot of fans confused about, well, then what are we going to see back when we get to next regular season? And should I not even worry about the regular season if there's going to be this much of a gap between the way they call it as it has been this year? I don't know. But we're seeing in a bully ball environment a player thriving on it, taking full advantage of that, whether it was an official edict from the league or an unofficial edict from the league, or just referees starting the revolution on their own. Who the hell knows? But it's a completely different whistle, and to that extent, it's a completely different game. Players are getting pounded without getting the benefit of the whistle anywhere near to the same degree. And I will say I told you so. If you read, let me see if I can find the exact passage in the Johnny Athletic treatise on the evolution of Julius Randle as a member of your favorite basketball team. He's talking about that injury that kept him out of 13 games in Feb. Wolves went 5-8 during that stretch. Randle watches from the sidelines. Here's the key sentence. When he returned to the lineup, he did so with the intention of being a point forward. You can look it up. How many times on this show, when the struggle was real about seeing the fit, seeing how this is ever going to piece together properly with Randle as part of the core of the team, what did we say on this show? In fact, we may have even said it while he was hurt. Be a point forward with all that means. And I think the hardcores know what that means. The casual fan might not. A point forward basically means we think of, guards as being the point guard, the facilitator, the one that stuff runs through, the distributor. But in the history of the NBA, there have been some very sneaky to very good, obviously, distributors who are play one of the forward positions, but are such good passers or can move so well with the ball that they can initiate offense, not just for themselves, but for other players. And I said, Randle's got to stop worrying about being a scorer. First of all, he's a natural scorer, so he's going to score anyway. But what he needs to concentrate on, the way he can help this team the most, is to open up the floor for other people, including Anthony Edwards and several others as well. Be the point forward. Be more concerned about moving the ball. Don't let it get sticky in your hands just because your best strength offensively is sometimes just, power down low, use your butt to get good position, and then maybe dribble for 7 seconds. Don't always hold the ball that long. If it's out of your hands as quickly as it's in your hands, because that helps the play, do it. And don't worry about your point totals, because in the end, you're not going to be evaluated. You're not going to be the number one scorer on this team. It's obviously going to be Anthony Edwards. And secondly, guess what? If you do that well enough, long enough, that's going to open up scoring opportunities for you. When teams sort of start having to worry about other players as well, that's actually going to make your job as a scorer even easier. And that's what we're seeing here. So would Randle be as effective if they were calling it as tight in the postseason as they were in the regular? I don't know. But I do think it has helped him. We have seen a finesse team look far more powerful, physically dangerous, to the point where I think other teams have not exactly relished the contact. And Randle has relished it in a good way, not in a cheap way, but in a positive way. And maybe, so it'll be interesting going forward if he's still on this team where is he the sort of guy that you just say, well, I can't get too upset about what he does in the regular season as long as we get the playoff version of Julius Randle. That's all that necessarily really matters, because we're seeing a different player who is taking full advantage of a completely different set of rules regarding physicality, knocking people around, etc. That's worked, I think, very, very well. But again, I'd say I wouldn't blame a fan if they say, shouldn't it? Why can't we make it more consistent? And maybe the answer is the conspiracy for the league was people want scoring, at least in the regular season, to keep them happy. So we'll let them score 140. Well, if it's 142 and 138, and everybody's getting these fancy triple doubles, we'll let them have it. We'll let them have their fun. And maybe that makes the regular season more interesting to people. but it sure feels like it's almost phony. Look at, for example, you got the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of the best regular seasons in the history of the league. They were down. They're in trouble. They're about to be eliminated by the Indiana Pacers, and they were down by 40 points yesterday. 40 in the postseason, which is bizarre to me. But it goes to show that maybe the concern about regular season records should be really not much of a concern at all, very possibly. It's May 12th, Dan. That's not late May. It's mid-May. Did I say late May? All right. Mid-May, you're right. I exaggerated to make the point just a little bit. I apologize.
Even bringing up the fair is very polarizing, I found.
Apparently it is.
Half of the texts were, I already got my tickets, can't wait to go. And half of them don't even dare mention it.
Yeah. How many people out there work that far in advance? So, and how much money do you save at the state fair if you get your tickets this far in advance? Are they like $3 a day? Or is it how much does it change? Do you know?
I don't. I can't imagine it's much. Maybe you're just that excited about the fair, which, like, it's fun. I can't wait to go out there, but, like, I don't know if it's that fun.
Yeah, I'm just not. Fun. I don't plan ahead that much to be. But for some people, that's part of the deal. I'm not here necessarily to rip it. Julius does bully Draymond, and it's great. Yeah, that's good. Draymond is going to be. The Wolves have to be ready for Day tonight. I really think they got to be ready for him. I mean, part of me says maybe he'll be on his best behavior, knowing that he knows they got to win the game tonight or the series is over. On the other hand, if it gets a little bit out of hand, what did we say after game? What was the game in which he should have been ejected? Was that game? That was game 2. And we basically said before that game, because game 1, he was on his best behavior. In fact, we thought psychologically he'd done something really smart. He gave venomous Wolves fans really no chance to double down on their hatred. He did not get in any meaningful scrums. He fouled Edwards once hard going to the basket and held him up. He didn't push him to the ground. And I'm thinking, you're disarming these Wolves fans who have so much venom in their heart. But as we said, I think from the cage before game 2, knowing Day the way we do, the other Day, the cheap shot Day will reveal himself again. He'll probably wait until they're down 15. And they literally were down 15 when he had his incident with Naz Reid that should have gotten him thrown out of the game. So they got to, you got to be looking from all sides on Draymond tonight, because he could get desperate. He could get ugly. And in his mind, if the Warriors are struggling early, he might just do something cheap because he'll believe that might help change the dynamics of the game and get his team going. Like a Kevin McHale clotheslining Kurt Rambis kind of moment. That's an old school reference to an infamous moment in NBA Finals history when the Lakers were dominating the Celtics until on a drive to the basket, Kurt Rambis got a Laker forward named Kurt Rambis got clotheslined by McHale going to the basket, and the Lakers were never the same that series. The Celtics came back and won the series. So you got to have your head on a swivel with Day tonight. On the other hand, this is part of why the Randall story should be so impressive to Wolves fans. There's no intimidation factor playing Day with Julius Randle at all. Randle's, first of all, stronger, and he's been fearless with him. And he utterly and completely outplayed Draymond the last game. Now, I'm not counting out Draymond in that regard again because he's too good a player still. But you got a guy who can match up with him, isn't afraid to match up with him, and now is feeling perhaps a little confidence, and perhaps it can even go from there where he can whatever intimidation factor there might be with Draymond is pretty much gone. We do plan to talk Minnesota Twins. I've asked this question before. I'll ask it again via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686. Is there how many victories in a row by the Twins might actually get the attention of the fans who said, I don't want to go back there, I don't want to participate as long as the poll ads are there? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 30? What's the number at which you go, well, I can't ignore this any longer? Because we had a nice come-from-behind victory in extra innings yesterday to complete another sweep. Is it 7 in a row now or 8?
I want to say it's up to 9 now.
No, it's not 8. I think it might be 8. It's either 7 or 8. Double check. But again,
no, it's up to 8.
It's up to 8. And the interesting thing is, this is no longer the little engine that could division. Some good division records here, right? I mean, that's part of the rub now. Is some years, if you had at any point in your season an 8-game winning streak in this division, you're probably vying for first place. But it's a little bit more complicated in that regard now. In fact, I'm hoping, I'd love to get Gleeman on this week. A lot of times we get him on Tuesday. I don't know if that's going to be possible tomorrow, but I think it's time for a refresher course on the Minnesota Twins. If this is a sustainable deal, the pitching has been very good. They're finally getting some other hitting. And Buxton, that's the sad part about this. Buxton is great box office baseball in the sense that, aesthetically speaking, when he's going, he's as pleasing a player as there is in the league. He really is. He's healthy, so he can run. He's stealing bases. He's hitting. He's hitting for power. He's continuing to patrol center field very well. So he's a player that you say, well, he alone might be worth going to see the club. That may be wasted here now with the way so many fans have told us they feel about the product. My gut is, if you keep winning enough, you're going to get some people who are going to weaken on that and say, yeah, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go out. I'm kind of curious. Everybody else is having fun. Up until now, though, as we've said, the attendance figures have been dismal for this club. We know that they have a number of ticket issues at this point. Even after a gorgeous weekend, we talked about the Saturday attendance, which I think was 23. We'll double check what the Sunday attendance was, how much better it was. But I'll be honest with you. When I watched late in that ball game yesterday, you know what it looked like? It looked like mid to late September when you're already eliminated from the postseason. That's how empty it looked. Now, that was the 10th inning, but it's not really supposed to. It's hard for me to believe there was a full house, and then a bunch of them decided to leave because they just had so much baseball in them, and they left after 9 innings. Did we get an attendance figure for Sunday?
I can.
Yeah, double check it if you can.
I want to say it was like 23.
Because that's what it was Saturday, I think, when we looked it up. So double check if it was
maybe that's left over from sermon.
About the same. But it might. I'll be honest. When I looked there, it looked emptier. And that was, again, it wasn't the 15th inning. It was the 10th. And there were, the in the outfield bleachers, like I said, it felt like, well, they've already been eliminated, and it's just people showing up late.
You ready?
Yeah.
23,551.
That's awful. I mean, that's really awful for, again, perfect weather, hot. But you know what the beauty of it was? It was a dry heat. There's no better kind of heat than a dry heat. That's why if you forced me, I'd take Arizona over Florida. Even though I know Arizona temperatures, when they get to over 100, doesn't matter how dry it is. But I can't stand steam. I cannot countenance humidity. And isn't Florida generally more humid than Arizona?
It's a step outside and your glasses fog up.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
Exactly right. All right, let's come back. We'll get a weather update from our guy, Johnny Athletic. What's the temperature in San Francisco? In two ways. Obviously, the actual temp, and then the Golden State Warrior fans' temp, about what they might expect tonight as the Wolves find themselves in prime position to put their boots on the throats of the Golden State Warriors and go up 3-1 with Game 5 back here. Johnny with a full report live next.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
Yeah, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.